Iron can be a problem to a point. If you've ever heard the term hemochromatosis, some people don't get rid of iron as fast as other people do, and if you build up too much iron, it can cause all kinds of problems. The most noticeable thing you'll get right away is constipation, or if you get a pH strip and you pee on it, it'll mess your pH up. It'll be really acidic, and if you're really acidic, that opens your body up to every kind of infection. It is more possible in an acid environment than an alkaline one. Cancer is very common in a 5.5 acidity, and almost everybody they test with cancer has about a 5.5 pH, and that's how it could be dangerous to you in that regard. But if there's a lot of iron in there, I'd be more concerned if there's other metals in there, arsenic, antimony. Yeah, I would get it tested because most of the arsenic molecules that come out of your well are usually too big to absorb taking a shower in it, but you could absorb it by drinking them. And if you had any candida in your gut and you drank organic arsenic, it would eat it up and turn it into the other stuff too. So it can be dangerous in that way, toxic. But well water is generally better to start with than city water, because city water is automatically full of fluoride, which is extremely toxic to the human body, chlorine, and then all these drug residues from every medication that everybody in your neighborhood and everybody around is taking.
Does a charcoal filter do much?
Charcoal filters pull out anything that's got a positive charge, sort of pull out a lot of metals and things, but won't necessarily grab everything out of there. But the biggest thing with the charcoal filters is once they get saturated, they actually start to release the toxin back out again. So you got to monitor and change them often enough and really be on top of that all the time to prevent yourself from getting no toxin for a while, and then at the end of the month getting a whole bunch because the filter's too much, too plugged.
Isn't a lot of the bottled water industry just right out of the tap?
Yeah, a lot of them are just municipal sources, and sometimes they're springs too. But the spring could be, there's no stipulation on that. Most of the time, they're reverse osmosis or some kind of very strict filtration system, which it's better. But if you test a lot of those, your waters, when they're really clean, they should be alkaline. And a lot of these waters, these reverse osmosis waters that we buy in the store, you test them, they're very acidic. So they're actually the opposite of what they should be. They're real clean water. You can buy it from places, or you can start with a good well water, filter it, add a little bit of soda to it to make it alkaline, like Bob's Red Mill makes an aluminum-free baking soda. If you really wanted to get into mixing up a nice, clean, detoxifying kind of water, people add all kinds of things to them for mineral catalysts and stuff. I like the Amica pH balancer, pH and salt balancer. That's all the minerals in that are from natural sources. A lot of them I've seen lately come from mica, which is a mineral that they make countertops out of. I prefer the other myself, the plant-based stuff. So.
I mean, our world is filled with chemicals.
Right, and I focus on the ones we can choose, and that's why I've opened it up with. Basically, is that you want to get toxins out of your body, you got to stop putting them in, and you can't avoid car exhaust and all these things are going to be in your daily life. You're going to go to a store that uses toxic cleaning chemicals, and you're going to be exposed to those kind of things. The things you can choose are the ones you use, your own cleaning products, all the food you ingest, all those kind of things. You can choose those, and that's the only place you can start, because that's the only place you have a choice, and you can actually do something about it yourself. Everything else is here. We're going to be exposed to it regardless. Over time, I'm sure we can lobby for the right, governmental changes to make that happen, but that's going to be a long time in the future. Anything else?
Well, one thing that cannot be stressed enough is proper nutrition.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Fruits and vegetables, and you're not going to get it at the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
You need a whole food. The body is to be in balance. There's a lot of things it needs, and you do not get the micronutrients that you need from food. You get it from whole foods. And that's why people, they crave things, they eat, they feel satisfied, but then they crave again because the body's not getting what it wants.
Yeah.
You don't recognize the signs, you're really still starving your body.
Yeah, that's a whole big thing. We're talking about food matters too, but yeah, I tell people that a lot too. If you're getting all the nutrients you need, and people go, how can you only eat that? And they see what you have, what I have to eat for the day. how can you're only going to eat that? Well, yeah,
Your body's
when your
satisfied.
body's satisfied, you don't crave all those things. If you eat whole bananas and whole apples and then some raw nuts and seeds and stuff, you wouldn't believe if you keep doing that for a while. You know, at first, if you just dropped everything today, dropped all your bread and all your prepackaged food and all your MSG and stuff, you're going to feel like crap when you start eating that for a little while. I think that's a mistake people make. But if you keep doing that for a while, your body doesn't demand all this extra food anymore. Most of the time, when people eat a corn chip, how many people you know eat a corn chip?
Yeah. One.
Most people eat one or two, and they're going to eat those things. The reason why is because corn creates a niacin deficiency, and it's very subtle. But even that one chip, your body knows, hey, wait a minute, I got all these nutrients, and there's not enough niacin in that, so it's demanding food. And you don't know subconsciously, so you just keep eating the stupid corn chips, thinking that that's going to satisfy the craving, and it won't, because it's not a whole. If you balanced it with other things that made up for that niacin deficiency, you'd eat 3 or 4 corn chips, and you'd feel full. But yeah, and then when you're eating all these whole foods and getting all the nutrients you need, every one of your body functions works better. So when you run across these toxins, you know, the person standing next to you eats McDonald's every day. Their body is so loaded up with all these preservatives and things, their liver's all backed up. They inhale that cadmium, they're not going to get rid of it as quick as the person standing next to them that's eating an all-organic diet, that's getting all the nutrients they need. Every one of their glands is working correctly. All their body's functions work correctly. So when it inhales that cadmium, it says, oh, we're getting rid of that crap, and it comes out the other side a lot quicker. Yeah, that's definitely, yeah, and that's the long-term plan too, though. You know, I try to tell people that, you know, they say, well, how long does this detox thing take? Because all these products that they sell, they got, you know, 2 weeks, a month, you know, 1 week. My favorite one's 3 days. There's just no way you're going to get all this crap out of your body in 3 days. It took you years to get it in there. It's going to take you a long time to clean up that mess too. Yeah, and then I would go with the long-term plan, and don't plan on, well, 2 weeks I'm going to clean up, and then I'm just going to go right back to my old lifestyle. You're going to be right back to where you started anyway.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. Is at least that's what I think that's going on. Last night I made like a quick quiche, and I was in buying. I thought, oh, I'll put some bacon in. I probably shouldn't, but I will. It was like, oh, low sodium. Okay. So I cooked that up, and I was making that, and I ate a couple pieces while I was making it. Within 20 minutes, I was all broken out. I'm like, what is going on? I thought a bug had bitten me, and I know what's happening. And I went to the rubbish, and I pulled out the package, and it's these sodium nitrites, and sodium blah, 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 and sodium. And my body's far from perfect, because you're right, it's going to take 3 years or more to get it out of there. It took 50, 80 years putting it in.
Yeah, nitrates is a
But I
big
think
liver
what's
inhibitor.
happening is all of a sudden, my body never used to do stuff like that because it was used to that stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's going, no,
Yeah,
within 20 minutes it's going,
when was
get
the
it
last
out
time
of
you ate
here.
pork too? Because
Yeah.
pork's really high in uric acid and
It's
all
got to be
kinds
what
of-
it is, because
carries
I
a lot
never
more
did
toxins
anything
than it
like this
needs to.
before. It's wild. I'm just like freaking out. I'm just going, this is too weird.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it'll go
could
away.
It could be just the nitrates. It could be that simple, or it could be just eating pork if you haven't had it in that long.
Oh, I haven't had,
You
I
know,
never
when,
ate bacon.
that's a good point too, is that when with the food and the nutrients and stuff and the ingestion of things, if you ingest raw fruits and vegetables and raw nuts and seeds, your body shows no white blood cell response to that. The first time you eat anything cooked, anything cooked, your body treats it as if it's a foreign invader. It thinks it's a bacteria or a pathogen, and it spikes up your white blood cell count. So that alone tells me that there's something we missed there with that whole cooking of food thing. And you know, some things we've learned, you have to cook it to unlock the nutrients. Most of our foods, it's not true. Most of them are in their best form when they're raw, and you pick it up and peel it and eat it the way it is.
If you overcook
It's
it,
still
you cook the
alive.
nutrients out of them.
Yeah.
Especially if you overcook it.
Isn't steaming the best?
Steaming for certain things, definitely. Your crucifer vegetables. Now, I was just talking to a woman about this that has Graves' disease, and most people have the opposite. They have hypothyroidism. Her thyroid's overactive. In her case, I told her, eat raw broccoli, cauliflower, all your crucifer vegetables, you know, your Brussels sprouts, cabbage, those kind of things. When you eat them raw, they block thyroid hormones, and they're actually somewhat toxic to some people. But when you steam them, the opposite is true. Like if you steam it slightly, all the thyroid problem stuff goes away, and the vitamin C becomes more available in those kind of vegetables. But you think about too, the true human dietetic character. If you were to walk up to that in nature, and you have those two choices in front of you. You have a big chunk of pineapple or papaya or some strawberries or some broccoli. You know, and you're just a wild person. You're not, you know, somebody who's trained to think of these things. You're not going to mess with that broccoli. That's not nearly as appealing to you as a piece of fruit. You know, and those are things to be considered too in the dietetic character. You know, if you were really meant to eat it, you should be able to walk up to it in its natural state, pick it, and eat it just like it is. And anything that's not is something that you should eat sparingly. You should eat less of that than the things that, if you naturally have all the attraction to it, then that tells me instinctively those are the things that we're supposed to be eating. You know, you look at they play on children with this a lot with bright colors. We use dye all the time, and dye is huge in all these different food things, and everybody knows that the one with dye in it does look more attractive. Like the red velvet cake that's bright red, it looks really pretty, and there's a reason for that. The human instinct is this. The bright red tomato has more lycopene in it. The bright red strawberry has more carotenes in it. You know, all these bright colors are actually in nature. When they occur in nature, these are antioxidants. These are things that prevent cancer. These are things that make your body feel good and alive. The dyes do the opposite, that your brain doesn't know the difference on a subconscious level. So when you see that bright colored thing, it looks attractive to you and you want to eat it, even though it's made out of aluminum. You know, if it's Blue Lake, anything that says lake, it's made out of aluminum. And those things cannot be, those instincts have to be there for a reason, I feel. I don't think we're grain eaters also. Like if you read about the human dietetic character, we don't have any starch splitting enzymes in our digestive system except one in our saliva. But after you've eaten like a pile of oats, once it's passed through and mixed with your saliva, your body really has a hard time breaking all that stuff down as it passes through your colon stuff. Not so much as meat, things like that, but it's really not part of our dietetic character. If it was, you would walk up to wheat and oats and things like that out in the field and want to pick it right off there and eat it. And I don't know anybody that wants to do that. We do all these things with grains, you know, to adulterate them and make them palatable. And that's in that lies some of the problems too. Wheat in itself is pretty healthy in its raw, you know, living form. But you take it and dry it out, and the oils that were in there that were once really healthy for you, they became rancid and they actually become toxic. And then when they grind it up and make flour out of it, they become even more toxic because they bleach it with bromine. And you know, you think about how far that's been removed from nature, and to make it palatable. And everybody loves a big fluffy piece of white bread. Nobody wants to eat a piece of wheat. And that's my thought is, you know, don't, you know, rule that out entirely, but you probably should eat it very sparingly because it's really not part of our dietetic character. Same could be said about potatoes and things like that too. Nobody harvests them raw and dig them out of the ground and want to eat them right off of there, where you walk up to apples and peaches and, you know, there's all these different foods that are in the environment that you could walk up to, don't need any kind of tools, and you can harvest them and eat them. Those are the things you should be consuming in the largest quantities.
I know the farm-raised salmon are given a feed to make them more pink because in the farm they're not as colorful as the wild salmon.
They dye them. They literally dye them with red dye most of the time, red number 40. Yeah, because they feed them soy, and then they don't swim around enough. They don't get the right exercise in the right environment. So yeah, they don't pink. They're kind of gray, and then they dye them that color to make it. And that's why the farm-raised ones look even more pretty than the fresh-caught one too, because it's dye on there. It's not the actual color of the animal.
So you think you're eating a healthy fish,
Right.
and you're consuming more, you know,
Yeah, on top of
unhealthy
who knows
stuff.
what kind of crappy feed they had and all the stuff in their environment. On top of that, they're putting dye on it too.
And it's probably similar with cattle and any other feed that's used.
Oh yeah. Well, here's a kind of an example, and I learned this by accident. I did a lot of other jobs before I did this, and I was a garbage man for 11 years. I drove a septic tanker for a year. You know, pump septic tanks. And
I just had mine pumped yesterday.
yeah, and this is really disturbing to you then. We were dumping on a field that we were dumping 12 to 15 times more than what was legally allowed, but they were accepting it from some loophole that they found. The DEQ and they said, no, that's okay because of some loophole. Well, they were growing corn on it, and they would grow on one side, and then we'd dump on the other side, they'd rotate it. And I asked them, I said, what do you do with all that corn? Because it's like blue from the dye coming out of the porta-johns and stuff. They said, oh, we feed that to dairy cows. They said, they cannot feed it to people or to cows that people are going to eat.